A billionaire mocked a retired army officer's daughter, but was shocked when she arrived with. The sun had barely risen when Sarah Johnson opened her eyes, her heart heavy with the responsibility she carried. At 22, she had been her family's sole breadwinner since her father, a former army officer, had been incapacitated by an injury on duty. "Sarah, honey, you're going to be late." Her mother's tired voice echoed through the hallway of the small apartment. Sarah sighed, running her hands over her face to shake off the sleep. "I'm coming, Mom," he replied, forcing an excited tone that he didn't feel. While getting ready, Sarah looked at the high school graduation photo on the dresser. His eyes shone with hope in that image, so different from the haggard look he now saw in the mirror. "One day, Dad," she whispered to herself, "one day I'll make you proud of me again." On the crowded subway on the way to work, Sarah clutched the folder with her updated resume to her chest. Today was the day. After months of saving every penny, she finally had an interview at the prestigious technology company, Nexus Corp. Sarah's heart raced as she entered the imposing glass and steel building. His hands shook slightly as he introduced himself at the reception. "Sarah Johnson, I have a 9 a.m. interview with Mr. Maxwell." The receptionist smiled warmly. "5th floor, honey. Good luck." Sarah swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her family's expectations on her shoulders. This job would change everything. He could pay for his father's treatments, take his mother out of her second job, maybe even go back to college. The elevator doors opened, and Sarah found herself in an elegant hallway. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. That's when he heard voices coming from a nearby room. One in particular stood out, arrogant, dismissive. "Do you really think I'm going to waste my time interviewing the daughter of a retired soldier? Ha! She probably doesn't even know how to turn on a computer." Sarah's blood ran cold. She recognized that voice. It was Nathan Maxwell, the billionaire CEO of Nexus Corp, famous for his genius and his cruelty. Heartbroken and tears threatening to fall, Sarah felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. All her dreams, all her family's hopes, crumbled before her cruel words. At that moment, something inside Sarah broke. The pain was almost physical, a tightness in her chest that left her breathless. But along with the pain, a spark of determination ignited. "No," Sarah thought, clenching her fists. "I'm not going to let him define me. I'm not going to give up." With shaky legs and a heavy heart, Sarah turned around. As the elevator doors closed, a single tear ran down her face. But in Sarah's eyes, once filled with innocent hope, now shone something new, a fierce determination, born of pain and injustice. Little did she know that this moment of humiliation would be just the beginning of a journey that would change not only her life, but that of everyone around her. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, and Sarah stumbled out, the world around her a blur of indistinct colors and sounds. She barely made it to the street before the tears began to fall freely. How could he? How? Sarah sobbed, leaning against a cold concrete wall, away from the prying eyes of passersby. The cell phone in his pocket vibrated insistently. It was his mother. "Sarah? Honey, how was the interview?" Her mother's hopeful voice was like a stab in Sarah's heart. She swallowed the lump in her throat, forcing herself to speak with a calm she didn't feel. "Mom, I couldn't. They didn't even give me a chance." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Sarah could feel the weight of disappointment, not just for her, but for her entire family. "Oh, honey." Her mother finally responded, her voice breaking. "It's okay. There will be other opportunities." But Sarah knew it wasn't okay. Nothing was fine. In the weeks that followed, the Johnson family's life fell further apart. The bills were piling up, Sarah's father's treatment was interrupted due to lack of payment, and her mother, exhausted, took a third job. One night, Sarah found her father sitting alone on the porch, staring into space. "Father," she called softly. He turned, and Sarah saw tears in the eyes of the man who had always been her hero. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't take care of you like I should." Sarah's heart broke once again. She knelt beside her father's wheelchair, holding his calloused hands. "No, Dad. Don't say that. We'll get through this together." But as the words left her mouth, Sarah wondered how. How would they overcome this? It was then that fate intervened unexpectedly. One afternoon, as Sarah was returning from yet another failed interview, she bumped into an elegant woman on the street. "Oh, I'm sorry," Sarah exclaimed, helping the woman pick up the papers that had fallen. The woman looked at her carefully. You're Sarah Johnson, aren't you?" Sarah froze. "Why, yes, it's me. Do we know each other?" An enigmatic smile appeared on the woman's lips. "Not personally. My name is Victoria Reeves. I worked for Nathan Maxwell, until recently." The name made Sarah shudder, but there was something in Victoria's gaze that intrigued her. "Sarah," Victoria continued, her voice low and urgent, "I have a proposal for you. One that could change everything. But it's risky, and once you accept it, there's no going back." Sarah's heart quickened. Danger and opportunity danced in Victoria's eyes. What are you talking about?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Victoria looked around, as if afraid of being overheard. "Not here. Meet me tomorrow at Café Noir at 3 p.m. And Sarah." She paused, her eyes piercing. "Think carefully about whether you're willing to do whatever it takes to save your family." With those words, Victoria disappeared into the crowd, leaving Sarah standing on the sidewalk, her heart racing and her mind spinning with possibilities and fears. That night, lying in her bed, Sarah couldn't sleep. Victoria's words echoed in her mind. What proposal would that be? How dangerous could it be? And most importantly, would she be willing to risk everything for a chance to change her family's destiny? As the clock ticked, Sarah knew she was on the verge of a decision that would change her life forever. Tomorrow would bring answers, but also new challenges. And deep in her heart, a flame of hope and determination began to grow, mixed with a fear of the unknown that awaited her. Café Noir was nearly empty when Sarah entered, her heart beating so loudly she feared everyone could hear it. Victoria was already there, sitting in an inconspicuous corner, her sharp eyes watching Sarah's every move. "You came," Victoria said, a faint smile on her lips. "Good. Sit down." Sarah slid into the opposite chair, her hands shaking slightly. What is this proposal?" Victoria leaned forward, her voice low and intense. "Sarah, what do you know about corporate espionage?" Sarah's blood ran cold. "Espionage? I don't." "Nathan Maxwell destroyed many lives," Victoria interrupted, her eyes shining with a mix of anger and determination. "Including mine. And now, I have the chance to take him down. But I need someone on the inside." Sarah swallowed hard, her mind spinning. "You want me to infiltrate Nexus Corp?" Victoria nodded slowly. "Exactly. With my contacts, I can ensure you get hired. But once inside, you'll have to gain Maxwell's trust, access confidential information, expose his illegal practices." Fear and excitement battled inside Sarah. "But what if I get caught?" "Then you lose everything," Victoria replied coldly. "But if you succeed, Sarah, you will have revenge, enough money to take care of your family forever, and the satisfaction of seeing Maxwell fall." Sarah closed her eyes, remembering her mother's tired face, her father's silent tears. When he opened them again, there was a new determination in them. "What do I need to do?" The following weeks were a whirlwind. With Victoria's guidance, Sarah transformed. Her wardrobe changed, her resume was rewritten, and she learned the basics of corporate espionage. Finally, the day has come for your new interview at Nexus Corp. This time, when Sarah entered the imposing building, it was with her head held high and a plan in mind. The interviewer, a middle-aged man named Mr. Thompson, smiled when he saw her. "Miss Johnson, your credentials are impressive. But tell me, why Nexus Corp?" Sarah took a deep breath, remembering what Victoria had taught her. Thompson, "I believe in innovation and excellence. Nexus Corp is not just a company, it is a vision of the future. And I want to be part of it." The words sounded false in his ears, but Mr. Thompson seemed delighted. The interview flowed smoothly, and before Sarah knew it, she was being taken to meet Nathan Maxwell himself. Sarah's heart almost stopped when she walked into his office. Maxwell had his back turned, looking out the picture window. "So," he said, slowly turning around, "you're the new prodigy everyone's talking about." Sarah forced a smile, fighting the urge to back away. "Maxwell, it's an honor to meet you." Their eyes met, and for a moment, Sarah feared he recognized her. But then, Maxwell smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome to Nexus Corp, Miss Johnson. I expect great things from you." As she shook his hand, Sarah felt like she was making a deal with the devil. She was in, but at what cost? The real game was just beginning, and the stakes were higher than she could ever imagine. That night, alone in her apartment, Sarah looked at her reflection in the mirror. Who was this new Sarah? A spy? An Avenger? Or just a girl desperate to save her family? With shaking hands, she picked up the phone to call Victoria. "It's done," she whispered. "I'm in." On the other end of the line, Victoria laughed softly. "Excellent, dear. Now the real work begins." As she hung up the phone, Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. She had crossed a line, and there was no going back. What did the future hold? Success? Discovery? Or something much worse? With a heavy heart and a whirling mind, Sarah prepared for her first week at Nexus Corp, knowing that every step, every word, every action could be the difference between triumph and total ruin. Days at Nexus Corp turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Sarah immersed herself in her role, working tirelessly, always with a smile on her face and a knot in her stomach. Every day was a battle between his conscience and his mission. One afternoon, while working late, Sarah heard a heated argument coming from Maxwell's office. Silently, she approached the half-open door. "We can't keep this up, Nathan," a male voice exclaimed. "Human testing is illegal and unethical." "Calm down, Dr. Reeves," Maxwell's cold voice replied. "Think about the advances we are making. A few insignificant lives are a small price to pay." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Dr. Reeves? Could he be related to Victoria and human trials? This was much worse than she imagined. Suddenly, the door opened completely. Sarah found herself face to face with Nathan Maxwell. "Miss Johnson," he said, his eyes piercing. "What are you doing here so late?" Sarah swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Just finishing up some reports, Mr. Maxwell. Didn't want to leave anything pending until tomorrow." Maxwell studied her for a moment, then smiled. "Dedication. I like it. Come, join us. I have a proposition for you." With her heart in her throat, Sarah entered the office. Dr. Reeves, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Sarah," Maxwell began, his voice smooth as velvet, "you've excelled here. I'm impressed with your work and your loyalty." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Thank you, sir. I do my best. And that's why I want to invite you to a special project," Maxwell continued. "A project that will change the world of medicine forever." Dr. Reeves intervened, his voice shaking. "Nathan, think about it. She's too young to be involved in this." Maxwell ignored him. "What do you say, Sarah? Are you ready to make history?" Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. This was his chance to uncover Nexus Corp's dark secrets. But at what cost? She looked into Maxwell's eyes, seeing the ambition and cruelty hidden behind the charm. I would be honored, Mr. Maxwell," she replied, feeling like she was selling her soul. Maxwell smiled triumphantly. "Excellent. Dr. Reeves will give you all the details tomorrow. Welcome to the Lazarus Project, Sarah." That night, Sarah could barely sleep. She called Victoria, her hands shaking. "Victoria, it's worse than we imagined," she whispered into the phone. "Testing on humans, something called Project Lazarus. And there's a Dr. Reeves involved. He's my brother," Victoria interrupted, her voice strained. "Thomas was always the brilliant scientist in the family. But he changed after he started working for Maxwell." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "Victoria, I don't know if I can go through with this. It's so dangerous, so wrong." "You have to keep going, Sarah," Victoria insisted. "We're so close. Think of your family. Think of all the lives we can save by exposing Maxwell." Sarah closed her eyes, remembering her father's face, her mother's exhaustion. "It's okay," she whispered. "I will continue." As she hung up the phone, Sarah felt the weight of her decisions. She was about to enter a dark world, a world she might not be able to escape. The Lazaro Project awaited, and with it, secrets that could change everything. The next morning, as Sarah got ready to go to work, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes, once full of innocence, now carried the weight of dangerous secrets. She took a deep breath, adjusted her posture and prepared herself for another day of lies and discoveries. "You can do it, Sarah," she murmured to herself. "You have to make it." With one last determined look, she left, ready to face the challenges that Project Lazaro would bring. Little did she know that the events that would unfold over the next few weeks would test not only her courage, but also her very humanity. The Lazaro Project's underground laboratory was a maze of sterile corridors and high-tech rooms. Sarah felt her heart hammer against her chest as she followed Dr. Reeves, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. "This, Dr. Reeves said, his voice low and strained, "is where we do the impossible." The doors hissed open, revealing a room filled with containment tanks. Sarah stifled a scream as she saw human shapes floating in the viscous liquids. What is this?" she whispered, horror and fascination mixing in her voice. "Dr. Reeves sighed heavily. "Advanced cell regeneration. We're trying to reverse death, Sarah." Sarah's eyes widened. Is this possible?" "Theoretically," he replied. "But the cost?" His voice trailed off. At that moment, Nathan Maxwell entered the room, his cold smile contrasting with the gloomy surroundings. "Ah, Sarah. I see Thomas is showing you our little pet project, Maxwell exclaimed, placing a hand on her shoulder. Sarah fought the urge to pull away. It's incredible, Mr. Maxwell, she forced out the words, feeling bile rise in her throat. Maxwell laughed. Amazing? It's revolutionary. Imagine, Sarah, a world where death is just a temporary inconvenience. Sarah looked at the tanks, a question burning in her mind. But where do the test subjects come from? Maxwell's smile widened, becoming almost predatory. Always the smart question. Let's just say there are a lot of desperate people in the world, willing to do anything for money or a second chance. Sarah's stomach dropped. She knew she had to maintain her composure, but the reality of what she was witnessing was almost unbearable. And what will be my role in all of this? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Maxwell guided her to a computer console. You, my dear, will be our eyes and ears. Monitoring, analyzing, ensuring no detail goes unnoticed. As Maxwell explained the technical details, Sarah noticed Dr. Reeves watching her with a strange expression, a mix of pity and hope. The hours dragged by. Sarah worked mechanically, her brain processing the enormity of what she had discovered. When she was finally released, she ran to the nearest bathroom and vomited violently. Trembling, she picked up her phone and called Victoria. If you like stories like this, subscribe to the channel. There will always be new videos, and you won't want to miss any of the excitement. Vic, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. It's worse, much worse than we imagined. They're playing God down here. Victoria was silent for a moment. Sarah, listen to me carefully. We need to act quickly. Tomorrow night, there will be a Nexus Corp charity gala. It's our chance to lay it all out. Sarah asked, desperate. I have a plan, Victoria replied. But it's risky. Very risky. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the floating shapes in the tanks. I'll do whatever it takes. As she left the Nexus Corp building that night, Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Tomorrow, everything would change. For better or worse, she didn't know. In the elevator, she found herself alone with Dr. Reeves. The silence was palpable. Sarah, he said softly, just as the doors opened downstairs. Take care. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Sarah nodded slightly and left, her heart beating with a mixture of fear and determination. Night fell over the city, but to Sarah, it seemed like a much bigger storm was approaching. Tomorrow would be the day everything changed, the day she would face Nathan Maxwell and the horrors of the Lazarus Project. As I walked home, the city lights seemed dimmer, the shadows deeper. Sarah knew she was about to dive into dangerous waters, and there was no guarantee she would emerge unscathed, or alive. The Nexus Corp charity gala was a spectacle of luxury and ostentation. Sarah, dressed in an elegant black dress, felt like an actress on a hostile stage. Her heart beat frantically as she navigated the room, smiling and chatting, the weight of the flash drive hidden in her bag feeling like an anchor. Sarah, darling. Maxwell's voice cut through the buzz of the party. Come, I want to introduce you to some investors. She forced a smile, following him to a group of men in suits. Maxwell, it's an honor. As Maxwell spoke, Sarah's eyes swept the room, looking for Victoria. Where was she? The plan depended on his presence. And this is Sarah Johnson, our newest rising star, Maxwell was saying. She has been instrumental in the Lazarus Project. One of the men raised an eyebrow. Lazaro? I thought this project had been shelved. Sarah felt the air become thick. Maxwell laughed, but there was a tension in his eyes. Just rumors, I assure you. Sarah can confirm the progress we're making, can't she? All eyes turned to her. Sarah swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the lie on her tongue. Yes, the progress is remarkable, she said, each word a knife in her heart. Suddenly, there was a commotion near the entrance. Sarah saw Victoria enter, looking stunning in a red dress, followed by her father. Sarah's heart almost stopped. Excuse me, gentlemen, she muttered, quickly walking away. She intercepted Victoria and her father before they could be noticed by Maxwell. What is he doing here? Sarah hissed, panic in her voice. Victoria smiled enigmatically. Change of plans, darling. Your father is the living proof we need. Sarah's father, still in his wheelchair but dressed elegantly, took his daughter's hand. Sarah, I know everything. Victoria told me. I'm here to help. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. Dad, it's very dangerous. Not another word, he said firmly. It's time for us to do what's right. At that moment, the lights flickered and Maxwell's voice echoed over the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an extraordinary announcement to make. Sarah exchanged alarmed looks with Victoria. That wasn't part of the plan. Maxwell continued, his voice full of triumph. Tonight, we will witness a miracle of science. The Lazarus Project is not just a dream, but a reality. Murmurs of astonishment ran through the crowd. Sarah felt her blood run cold. And to demonstrate, Maxwell said, his eyes sweeping the room until they settled on Sarah, we'll need a volunteer. Time seemed to freeze. Sarah saw Maxwell's cruel smile, Victoria's look of panic, and the determination in her father's eyes. I offer, Sarah's father's voice echoed through the room. No. Sarah screamed, but it was too late. Maxwell smiled triumphantly. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, follow me to witness the impossible. As the crowd moved toward the elevators, Sarah grabbed her father's arm. What are you doing? She whispered, desperate. He held your hand, his eyes full of love and resolve. Trust, Sarah. It's time to end this. Victoria approached, her voice low and urgent. The flash drive, Sarah. It's now or never. With her heart in her throat, Sarah followed the crowd into the underground labs, the fate of her father, Nexus Corp, and everyone involved in the Lazarus Project hanging in the balance. As the elevator doors closed, Sarah knew that the next few moments would define not only her future, but potentially the future of humanity. The final confrontation was about to begin, and there was no way to predict its outcome. If you like stories like this, subscribe to the channel. There will always be new videos, and you won't want to miss any of the excitement.